Byte-Sized Tech, where we like to blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets.
You know me, I love this stuff.
Today, we're diving deep into some visual conundrums that you might be facing with your TVs.
Yeah.
Ever wonder why your super expensive TV sometimes makes things look worse? We'll tackle that today.
We'll try.
From Apple TV 4K's upscaling magic to the HDR format that brought the Super Bowl to life.
Big game.
We'll break it all down.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll finally solve the mystery of those pixelated dark scenes that plague even the best TVs.
Oh, I hate those.
Let's get started.
Yeah, it's amazing how these seemingly simple things like watching TV actually involve a ton of tech working behind the scenes.
Oh, for sure.
And understanding those processes can really help you get the best viewing experience.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
First up, we have Apple TV 4K and its upscaling sorcery.
Hmm.
Now, I know upscaling is a common feature these days, but what's the deal with Apple TV always doing it, even if the source isn't actually in 4K?
That's right. Apple TV 4K takes a one-size-fits-all approach, upscaling everything to 4K.
Interesting.
Regardless of the original resolution, they're aiming for that consistent 4K output to your TV.
But doesn't that mean sometimes it's actually making the picture worse? Couldn't my TV's own upscaling be better in some cases?
You've hit on a key point.
Have I?
Some high-end TVs do boast more sophisticated upscaling processors than the Apple TV 4K.
Okay.
But in the real world, most people won't see a drastic difference.
Really?
Plus, you have to remember a lot of streaming services are already upscaling their content before it even reaches your device.
Oh, really?
So you're sometimes getting upscaling on top of upscaling.
Whoa.
It's a bit like putting a filter on a photo that already has a filter on it.
So basically, Apple TV's approach probably won't hurt, but it might not always be the absolute best.
Right.
I guess if you're really curious, you could always compare how a movie looks using the TV's built-in app versus the Apple TV.
Exactly. It's a fun experiment if you're a real picture quality nerd like me.
Now, speaking of gorgeous visuals, let's talk HDR.
Okay.
We know it brings vibrant colors and incredible detail.
Yeah.
But what's this I hear about a specific HDR format stealing the show, especially for live TV? I even heard this format was used for the Super Bowl.
You're talking about hybrid log gamma, or HLG as it's more commonly known.
Okay.
It really is the unsung hero behind those crystal clear live broadcasts.
Surreal.
What's fascinating about HLG is how it manages to cater to both regular SDR TVs and the newer HDR TVs with a single signal.
So everyone watching the Super Bowl, whether they had a fancy new TV or an older model, got to enjoy the game in amazing detail.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But how does HLG pull that off? It sounds like magic.
It's a clever engineering for sure.
Okay.
HLG utilizes a dual curve system.
Okay.
Imagine it like this. The darker parts of the image follow the standard gamma curve, just like an SDR. But when it comes to those bright highlights, it switches to a logarithmic curve.
Wow.
This preserves those super bright, eye-catching details that really make HDR pop.
So it's basically sending a signal that can be understood in two different ways depending on what kind of TV you have.
Yeah.
That's pretty efficient.
Yes.
But what about those other HDR formats we hear about, like Dolby Vision and HDR10? Why aren't they the go-to for these big live events?
That boils down to bandwidth limitations and current broadcast technology. Live TV, especially fast-paced events like sports, requires real-time generation of metadata for Dolby Vision or HDR10.
Okay.
This means you need a lot of bandwidth, much more than most broadcasters can currently handle.
Makes sense.
HLG, on the other hand, is much lighter and easier to transmit.
So HLG is the champion for now because it strikes that perfect balance between quality and practicality.
Yeah.
It's efficient, it's compatible, it's like the ultimate team player.
It really is.
But things could change down the line with technologies like next-gen TV, also known as ATSC 3.0, starting to roll out.
Right.
We'll have to see how that shakes things up.
Definitely, technology is always moving forward, and it's exciting to see what improvements will be made in the future.
Yeah.
But for now, we have to live with the technology we have.
That's true.
And that leads us to another common issue that you brought up, those dreaded pixelated dark scenes.
Yeah, yes.
You've all been there, right? You're watching a tense scene, the lights are low, and suddenly everything gets blocky and pixelated.
It's like the visual equivalent of nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, I know.
It's so distracting, especially when you're trying to get immersed in a movie or show.
Right.
What causes that anyway? Is it just my TV being wonky?
It's not your TV's fault, at least, not entirely.
Okay.
It's actually a phenomenon known as macro blocking, and it all comes down to compression. To ensure smooth streaming and cable delivery video content is heavily compressed.
Okay.
Basically, they're squeezing the video file down to make it smaller and easier to transmit.
I gotcha.
Unfortunately, dark scenes are often the first casualties in this compression war.
So those compression algorithms are like, hey, Who needs to see what's lurking in the shadows anyway? Just focus on the bright stuff. But seriously, why are dark scenes so susceptible to this blockiness?
Well, you have to remember that compression algorithms are designed to prioritize the information they think is most important.
Okay.
They look for areas of high contrast and detail, like brightly lit faces or objects.
Right.
Because those are the things our eyes naturally focus on.
Yeah.
Dark areas, with their subtle gradations and shadows, are deemed less crucial and end up being sacrificed for the sake of saving bandwidth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they just figure if it's dark, who cares?
Basically.
Wow. So even if you have a top-of-the-line TV with all the latest processing wizardry, it can't completely overcome the limitations of a poorly compressed source.
That's true to an extent.
That's kind of a bummer. It feels like no matter how much we spend on our TVs, sometimes we're still at the mercy of these compression algorithms.
While those fancy noise reduction features and AI upscaling can help smooth things out a bit, they can't magically invent detail that was lost in the compression process.
Oh.
The original source material plays a huge role in the final image quality.
It's almost like baking a cake. If you start with bad ingredients, no amount of fancy decorating can really fix it.
I like that analogy. But there is some good news.
Okay.
HDR and Dolby Vision content actually tend to suffer less from macro blocking.
Really?
Because those formats use a wider range of colors and more precise luminance mapping. This means there's less need to compress those dark areas so aggressively, resulting in a cleaner, more detailed picture overall.
So upgrading to an HDR or Dolby Vision compatible TV might actually help with those pesky pixelated shadows. Good to know. But what about those of us who are still clinging to our 3D TVs?
Oh, wow.
Is there any hope for us in this brave new world of HDR and high refresh rates?
Well, I hate to break it to the 3D fans out there, but it seems like 3D TV has gone the way of the dodo bird.
Oh, no.
Manufacturers have officially stopped production.
So 3D is officially extinct in the TV world.
Pretty much.
I have to admit, I kind of enjoyed the novelty of it when it first came out.
Yeah.
It felt so futuristic.
It did.
But I guess all good things must come to an end.
It's true.
At least we still have those goofy glasses as a souvenir.
Yeah, you can always reminisce about those days. But think of it this way.
Okay.
If you've been using a 3D TV for a while, you're in for a serious visual upgrade when you finally make the switch.
Yeah.
The advancements in picture quality over the past few years are mind-blowing.
I bet.
HDR, higher refresh rates, larger screen sizes. It's a whole new experience.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to Apple TV 4K's upscaling for a moment.
Sure.
Is there anything viewers can do to optimize that process, or are we just stuck with whatever Apple's algorithms decide to do?
That's a great question.
Is it?
While we can't directly tweak Apple TV's upscaling algorithm, there are some things you can do to make sure you're getting the best possible picture.
Okay, tell me more.
First, always double-check that your Apple TV is actually set to output 4K resolution.
Okay.
It sounds obvious,
Yeah.
but sometimes settings can get changed accidentally, especially if you share your TV with other people.
Oh, yeah. I've totally been there.
Yeah.
My family wants to mess with my carefully calibrated settings.
It happens to the best of us. Another crucial thing is your HDMI cable.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure you're using a high-speed cable that can handle 4K signals without any hiccups. A low-quality cable can bottleneck the signal and really impact the image quality.
Okay.
It's like trying to water your garden with a tiny straw. It's just not going to flow properly.
So investing in a decent HDMI cable is always a good idea.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things that can make a surprising difference.
It really can.
And don't forget about your TV's picture settings. Experiment with the different picture modes and adjust things like sharpness and noise reduction to your liking.
It's a good advice.
Every TV is different, so there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's all about finding what looks best to you.
Your eyes are the ultimate judge.
That's so true.
What looks best to one person might not look best to another.
Right.
It's all about personal preference.
Speaking of personal preferences, I'm curious to hear from our listeners.
Oh, yeah.
What are your experiences with Apple TV 4K's upscaling? Have you noticed any big differences compared to your TV's built-in apps? Let us know.
Yeah, chime in and let us know your thoughts. We always love hearing from our tech-savvy audience. And while you're at it, tell us about your encounters with that dreaded macro blocking and dark scenes.
Yeah.
What shows or movies were you watching when it happened? Did you find any tricks to minimize the blockiness?
We're all in this together, fighting the good fight against compression woes. Let's share our tips and tricks.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of visual tech.
It really has.
We've learned about Apple TV's upscaling approach, HLG's dominance in live TV broadcasting, and the ongoing battle against pixelated dark scenes. But one thing's for sure, technology never stands still.
Nope.
Who knows what exciting advancements are just around the corner.
Maybe someday we'll have compression algorithms that can flawlessly preserve detail in every scene.
Ooh, wouldn't that be nice?
Regardless of how bright or dark it is, or perhaps a new HDR format will emerge that makes HLG look like yesterday's news.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
They really are. It's an exciting time to be a tech enthusiast.
Every year brings new innovations and advancements.
That's for sure.
But for now, I think we've covered enough ground for one episode.
I agree. We've given everyone a lot to think about.
So to recap, Apple TV's upscaling is generally pretty good. HLG is the reigning champion for live broadcasts. And those pixelated dark scenes, well, they're still a bit of a mystery.
Yeah.
But at least now we have a better understanding of what causes them and some potential ways to mitigate them.
And remember, technology is constantly evolving. What seems like a limitation today might be a distant memory tomorrow.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those screens looking sharp.
Great advice.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Byte-Sized Tech. Thanks for tuning in to Byte-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed the episode, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions. Thur HT.